Hello, everybody, and welcome to Manga for Dummies episode Psych. Max is in
Hello,
here.
this is Craig.
Yeah, so we have Craig in for to replace Max for this episode.
Don't put that kind of responsibility on me. I can't do that voice very well.
Yeah, but either way, Max had to take a few weeks off, so we decided to change things up because we still wanted his input on Naruto. So if you read the title, you'll probably guess what's happening. We're gonna actually do a short, which I haven't done in a while,
It
and
has
VJ has
been.
never done.
Yeah, you really put the team on your back for those.
Yeah. Either way, I mean, like we're called Manga for Dummies, but we're not exclusive or anything. Like we watch a few animes here and there, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. I think at this point I watch more than well, that's not true, but it in this day and age, like there's so much more original anime released than manga, I feel like.
Hmm.
So the options are there. So I mean, we could always move to anime sometimes. It's manga's just like the source of it. So, and the
Right.
name sounded better than anime for dummies.
Yeah, it did. That was the main appeal, honestly.
Made for a
Um,
better logo.
yeah. At least for us, we wanted to look at something that was a little more recent.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing because Max wasn't available, we sat down and like Yuan said, we wanted to hear his opinion on the show, or on the series. So we decided let's do a short, and we looked at a list of shows that we wanted to watch, preferably ones we hadn't seen yet, and we decided on a show called The Great Pretender.
And I think the coolest thing about this is that it's pretty readily available. You know, it's on Netflix, and I mean, most people have Netflix, and even if you don't, you can still abuse that 1 month free trial.
Absolutely. I mean, at this point, the number of people who get free accounts from their friends and stuff like,
Yeah, at that point. So The Great Pretender. I mean, I personally have to be honest. I haven't really watched too many anime this season. Uh, I don't know about you.
Me neither for this particular season. I'm really behind on my anime, to be honest. It's something I'd like to catch up on, but there's not enough time in the day sometimes.
Yep.
But I'm pretty happy that we picked this one up because, before we go into this, I'd like to say that, yeah, I really enjoyed it personally.
I have to say I enjoyed it too, but it was pretty obvious from the get-go that you enjoyed it much more than I did. Like, but on the day we settled on the show, a day and a half later, VJ just came to me, "Hey, I'm done off work." What?
I mean, shit. I was invested. I don't know what to say. Um, so yeah, it's not a super. I mean, do you want to just hop into it? Is there anything else we need
No,
to
I think we could
clear the
just
air
go
with?
ahead and top in with it. I mean, just off the get-go, we did watch in dub. At least I did.
I
The
did
main
as
reason
well.
for that is like I wanted to get like the full act because like for example, Laurent is supposed to be like a Frenchman, and I wanted to hear if he sounded like a Frenchman since you and me know what Frenchmen sound like.
Yeah,
Um, like
English speaking Frenchman.
yeah, and like so there's some parts where the guys are speaking Chinese, some other parts are speaking full on French, and like it was nice to be able to hear that.
Hmm.
Um, if you guys watch the sub, like it's hard. We probably wouldn't be able to tell if that's a French accent of Japanese. So I mean, it was just more.
Oh, damn. I hadn't even thought of that.
So yeah. So at least for us, I mean, I don't want to get into the debate of sub versus dub, but like there's some shows I think are better watched dub. Sort of like I think there was like Baccano back in the day.
Okay, I've never seen Bakano, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, either way. So we sort of swap things up. Usually I bring the information, but since VJ had so much free time from having finished in a day and a half,
Well, free
VJ
time isn't the. I think I had more time because,
more time.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, before we do hop into this, I would like to add to that point where we did some research to see what the show is about because Netflix anime is a new thing, but it's becoming more and more prevalent. Like
Hmm.
Netflix is releasing a lot of original anime. I think they released Tower of God recently, which was super popular. Apparently, that's another thing I haven't watched, but I really need to. So we might save that for the next
Uh,
short.
there was also Beastars, which I really enjoyed the manga. I haven't really
Mm,
dived too deep in the anime.
it's I haven't. It's like CG animated, but it's not bad. It's
Yeah.
like it's watchable. I mean I haven't watched all of it because the premise is so alien to me, but
Hmm.
it's a good watch. Like you won't your eyes won't bleed watching it.
Oh,
But all this I can't remember where I was going. Yes, all this to say we did some research to see if it would be better to listen in English or Japanese. And for the most part, people were saying that the dub wasn't bad. And because we had read that there were accents being, used,
hmm.
um, we thought, why not? Let's just try it. And that is something we're gonna talk about in a bit because I do have some things to say about that.
Right.
But to start, let's just jump into the general premise that is The Great Pretender.
All right. So hit me.
Yeah, so The Great Pretender is an original Japanese crime comedy series. It was released worldwide in actually in August 2020, but
Okay.
was released in Japan on June 2020. So it's fairly recent.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, so the first series released a little, or the first arc rather, which the show calls a case, was released in Japan a little early, but then the three that are out right now were released worldwide. And there is a fourth case that is scheduled for a November worldwide release.
Oh, okay. So it's coming up soon.
Yeah, it's ongoing. And we had this question before we started watching it. Was it based on a manga? It was not. This is wholly original anime, and there was actually a manga adaptation by. A small side note. I'm very sorry for how I'm about to butcher these Japanese names, but anyway, there was a manga adaptation by Daichi Marui, which began releasing on June 10th of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I haven't personally seen it. I haven't seen the name at all. But
I haven't heard of him either.
I might look into it later on.
Same, same. It was produced by Wit Studio, W-I-T, Wit Studio, who have also worked on popular series such as Attack on Titan, The Ancient Magus's Bride, and Vinland Saga.
Whoa, all three are pretty big names, to be honest.
Yeah. They're up there. I hadn't heard of them either, but it's funny because the style of the anime made me think of Kill la Kill, so I thought it was going to be Funhouse. I think their name is. Is that what it
Right.
is?
I think it is. Yeah, Funhouse.
Funhouse or that other big one, Studio Trigger. That's the one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
One of those. I can't remember, but anyway, it was directed by Hiro Kaburagi, which I haven't heard of him either, but he is best known for directing the first and second season of uh, Kimi no Todoke, which is From Me to You. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, it's like a romance novel.
Okay,
Well, romance series. Not really my cup of tea, but I do know those who are into romance did enjoy that one.
great. He also directed My Little Monster and 91 Days, which I also never heard of.
I've heard of Little Monsters. I've never heard of 91 Days.
Great. Well, we'll put that on the list for future short topics. And it was written by Ryota Kosawa, who is known for Always Sunset on 3rd Street, The Detective is in the Bar, and Parasyte Part 1, which, I mean, I know Parasyte. That was like a
Yeah,
phenomenon
I'm
when it
in with
came
the
out.
same. I'm the same with you. Like I only know Parasite. Your two are foreign to me.
Probably low key, something maybe that we hadn't seen. Although I did look at their IMDb's to get an idea of what these shows were.
Hmm.
Detective is in the bar, kind of like I mean, this is purely going off of the cover art, so
Right.
don't take my word for it. It looked a little more serious in tone, maybe like a thriller, murder mystery type thing. And Always Sunset on 3rd Street looked like a slice of life a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, more like Moe type of shit. And that's pretty much all that I could come up with for The Great Pretender. As I said, it is a fairly recent series, uh, but it's off to a great start in my opinion. Like I really enjoyed it.
Um, like, do you know anything about the soundtrack? Because I thought the soundtrack was actually it sounded familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was.
I didn't see or hear anything about the soundtrack itself.
Hmm.
Uh, it, although in my opinion, there are three different kinds of soundtrack in anime. There is a good soundtrack, a bad soundtrack, and an exceptional soundtrack. A good soundtrack isn't something you really remember. You know,
Right.
it's something that does its job. It fits the mood. It does what you expect it to do.
Hmm.
A bad soundtrack does the complete opposite, where the tone doesn't fit with the
It
music or
hurts
the
the
scene.
series.
Exactly. It really doesn't help the series at all. And an exceptional soundtrack would be something that doesn't you wouldn't expect to work, but it really denotes itself from the show, and it adds so much to it. I think the most ready example I have would be from Van Helsing, the original anime, with that smooth jazz piano, I think it is.
Yeah, that or Cowboy Bebop.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think it's a good soundtrack. It does what it needs to do. I was never bored because of the music, or it never threw me off per
True.
se.
I
So
think
I,
I
sorry,
think
what was that?
the intro though, while it was stylistically pretty, was a little
Hmm.
boring.
Okay.
Um, like the ending on the other hand was strangely mesmerizing
Really?
due to the soundtrack, but at the same time like the two together aren't really that memorable, I feel.
They do their jobs.
Yeah. So you're right.
Yeah.
I think this would squarely fall under the good category, but not exceptional.
Exactly. I'd give it to you. The intro itself, I think, made me think of Archer, which kind of set my expectations a little high. So maybe I
Right.
was a little blinded by because it did have that similar, silhouette intro,
Hmm.
people going through the motions of whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah, just to remember how Archer felt, I actually watched like the intro on YouTube, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of similarities. Bright colors, like silhouette, almost James Bond like.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean, do you just want to jump into the story itself?
Oh, well, the thing is that in my opinion, in my head, the listeners obviously won't be expecting this. So I
Right.
was thinking maybe for the most part we keep it spoiler free to give them a chance to watch it.
Do you want to create like a cutoff point? Like we're
That's
gonna
exactly
just
what I
run
was going to
through.
say.
Okay, that works. All right.
I was going to say maybe later in the episode we can bring up some spoilery things like in points of discussion that go a little more into detail. But for now, I think if you're okay with it, of course,
Yeah, I'm
we
fine.
keep it general. Perfect. Okay.
So for the listener, at least this early part, we'll keep it spoiler free. If there is accidentally any spoilers, I'll edit that out. If not, I'll probably have like a little cutoff point later. I will say we'll just go directly say
We'll bring it
from
up.
here on. Yeah, from here on it'll be spoilers.
Perfect. That sounds like a plan. Okay, so moving in, I thought it'd be cool to bring up, maybe stuff we did like and other stuff that we didn't like as much. I can start us off with something that I thought was really cool, and it's something that we noticed right off the first episode because we watched the episode together, the
Yeah.
first one. The art is absolutely incredible. I mean,
Yes.
the animation was fluid, it was great, and the backgrounds were super colorful. And this is the first thing we noted. They almost lent themselves to something of an 80s acid trip, and they matched the lighthearted tone
Right.
of the show.
At least for me, I thought the animation was really nice. They also knew when to use CGI. Specifically, whenever there's vehicles, like vehicles, they use a
Hmm.
lot of CGI, and I thought it didn't look out of place. It looked like a car
I
or like a
agree.
plane.
I agree 100%. I didn't even notice it was CG.
At least, let's talk a little bit about the character designs. The main character I did find was a little bland, as a character design.
Okay.
The rest of them, though, I thought they were really colorful. Like everything else, every other character was actually sort of more memorable than the main character.
Mm. I agree
Before we
with you.
talk about like the character itself, let's just talk about like the designs and stuff.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I agree with you there. He is the most bland of the characters, especially when you compare them to the other colorful characters in the series. But I'd argue almost that was on purpose,
Okay,
especially in the first case, which or the first arc. Do we call them arcs or cases? Let's
let's
call
just
them
call them
arcs.
case. Let's follow what they want, I
Yeah,
guess.
especially in the first case, which this is a little spoiler, so I'll save it for later, but I think it was intentional to make us relate more to the main character in the first case.
Right.
Um, and obviously, this is a show, this isn't a spoiler, obviously, and we didn't really talk about what the show is about, but the show is about these con artists who go about committing huge crimes for loads of money, and this one con artist from Japan gets roped into it and goes on these crazy adventures with these, internationally, not renowned, obviously, but these internationally infamous con artists who get away with, robbing millions from people. So, damn, I can't remember the point I was trying to make here. What was I talking about?
So you were just going through the main character, like how we take his point of view.
Yeah, but what was I saying like before that?
I mean, you were saying like he's sort of bland for a reason, I guess.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, yeah, the show's about that, and in the first case, uh the main character is a little clueless about what's going on, but he's playing along just to, play his role for reasons we'll get into later, because he's kind of in competition with his rival, we can call him, I
Right.
guess. And the fact that he's clueless really it made me connect with him more, I'd say, because when stuff was happening and he was in the dark about it, I felt more invested with what was going to happen to him.
Right, yeah, I can see that now because it was sort of I will say the first episode felt a little overly loaded. So I
Mm,
I do guess sort of the main character serves as an anchor so that we could sort of catch up to what's happening.
exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my point of view, but I will agree with you that in terms of design itself, he's pretty bland when comparing to the others. Oh, that's the point I wanted to make. This is obviously, like I was saying, they're all con artists, so they
Right.
can't all stand out and have like blue hair and
Oh, okay, okay.
that's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah,
Um,
okay, that makes sense.
yeah, but I do agree with you that in terms of, overall design, he is the most bland of the roster. But speaking of the characters, what did you think about them? Going
Um,
past the design, just their personalities and how they were written.
I think the characters were I mean, admittedly, I think all the characters were sort of twofold because half the time when they're on screen, they don't act like themselves due to them probably being in a giant plot to scam somebody's their money. Um,
Mhm.
so I thought it was an interesting contrast. I don't really see any other series that does something like this. Uh, like we might as well talk a little bit like Naruto. Like Naruto's always straightforward. He's always a straight shooter. He's a little stupid, and I bet like even though he is stupid, you do understand this is what you expect from him, and this is what you get from him. Meanwhile, with these characters, half the time you don't know what to expect from them, and you don't know is the one that you're being presented their real self, or is it just a facade that they bring up?
Okay, I would argue that that brings an interesting layer to their character, though. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like a deconstruction of stereotypes, I guess. Like, none of the female characters were straightforwardly just fan service. None of the male characters were like none of the male characters were depicted as being like overly dumb or overly smart. I, at least for me, I felt like all the characters made sense. There's a wide variety of them, just to show that scam artists come in all shape and forms. And yeah, I think it was well done.
I agree. And I honestly, that isn't even an angle that I had looked at it from. But that's super interesting of you to bring up because it's true. While we do get glimpses of their real personality throughout the show, the characters for the most part don't really know. We don't really know who they are actually, which I
Hmm.
thought which is actually really cool that you bring that up. Overall, I'd say that, despite despite the topsy-turvy turns that these characters tend to take with each other and their dynamic, I thought they were all pretty overall lovable and they have great chemistry with each other.
Yes.
I was really invested in their stories, and this goes back to what I was saying in the first case, how the main character didn't know what was going on. It really made me connect with them more. So I was invested in their stories and the stories that they were partaking in, because I wanted to learn more about them firstly, and it also raised the tension when something that like when they were trying to run a con and something went wrong and they were put in danger. It made me like fear for their lives, and it raised the stakes a little bit for me. I don't know if you felt the same way.
I did feel something similar to that. For reference, this kind of series has like that psychological, like if it was a manga, it had like a psychological tag. Um, I remember reading Death Note a while back, like just rereading it because I read it before. Um, and I felt having had like some time away from Death Note, I felt like Death Note felt almost a little bit childish, how easily things were explained. Even though many people revere it as this like intellectual battle between L, L and Kira, I think his
Or
name.
yeah, light.
Light, right? To me, it felt a little like overly trying to like smell his own farts. Kind of like, oh, he was so smart. He predicted that. He predicted that. He would predict that. He predicted that.
Okay.
But like here, it felt more natural. I like obviously I couldn't predict every twist and turn, but I felt like when all things said, it was actually quite well done. If you actually I didn't go back and rewatch the episodes, but I do remember hearing some specific things that the characters said that actually came back and like when the reveal happens, you could have actually predicted that to happen. It
Mm,
almost felt like one of those Agatha Christie novels where you could technically, if you paid attention enough, you could have predicted what would happen. When we get into spoilers, I want to tell you about one. I don't know if it's not like some incredible thing, but if you noticed it, you tell me. Uh,
okay.
but yeah, it's stuff like that. I think it was actually quite well done.
That's great. Uh, yeah, totally. I agree with you 100%. It's felt, you hit the nail on the head there. Like sometimes when you'll look at psychological manga like that, it'll just be a back and forth of, oh, I predicted this, but I predicted that you'd predict that, and it becomes ridiculous sometimes. But here
Hmm.
there's a real sense, there's a sense of realism here where, sometimes they plan for what they could, and sometimes it's just not enough, so they have to wing it and they have to figure it out as they go along. And I really appreciated that in the show.
Um, I did you? I don't know if I want. It wasn't a big deal, but remember in episode one, there was the in and out, which just like the N was a Z, so it's make sure you
Yeah,
don't get copyrighted. But
in
actually
the out.
later on, there was actually a few product placements. Did you notice that?
I don't. Other than that one, no, I didn't.
Okay, I'm gonna say this, and it's not gonna be a real spoiler because it doesn't tell you anything. But like, remember the
The-
plane? It said Bandai on it,
Yes, I did see that.
and when one of them was drinking like boba or something,
Okay.
the cup said Ali, which I don't know if you guys have Ali over there, but
We
Ali is
don't.
this boba shop that I've seen like a few stores from over here.
No fucking way. I actually had no idea. We don't have that here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big boba drinker,
Same.
but like it's I thought it was really neat. It could be like the future of anime where it has like product placement. It sort of reminds me of Code Geass back in the day that had those Pizza Hut pizzas.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, anime is becoming more and more mainstream. Like that's, this goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of the episode. It's coming out more and more on Netflix. Movies are being released in theaters and stuff.
Right.
Anime movies, rather. It's only a matter of time. I mean, it can be commercialized. People more like enough people are watching it.
Yeah, but I think this is actually quite well done. It wasn't overly subversive. Like
No,
you didn't
exactly. It
notice
wasn't in your face. Yeah,
you didn't remember like until I told you, and I'm pretty sure I missed like probably one or two more if I actually
exactly.
knew
It's not
more
as not as
knew
if the
more
main
man.
character just drove up in like a Ford Focus and was like, "Oh yeah, that was a great ride,"
Yeah,
like
it's like
we see in some shows and stuff.
yeah. Overall, I think the series was quite well done.
Hmm.
Okay, how about this? Do you see a long-term future for this show?
Uh, long term, I don't know. I think it would be it shouldn't overstay its welcome, is what I'll say. Because
Yeah,
it is interesting, and it's fun to learn what we can about the characters throughout the show, because with every case we learn a little bit more about the characters,
right.
which is super cool. But eventually you run out of stories to tell, and there's only like so many things and you can include about a character, and so many heists you can organize without it starting to become repetitive or tedious. You know?
Hmm.
So while I think that it can last longer, there's already the fourth arc or the fourth case
Announced.
being set for release in November. And the show doesn't show and nice. The series doesn't show any signs of stopping right now, and I'm okay with it because I'm enjoying the show and I'd like to watch more of it. As long as it doesn't overstay its welcome.
So at least for me, it feels like at this point, they could technically like manufacture a ton more scenarios where they just go ahead and scam every like other rich people.
Hmm.
Um, in that sense, it could almost become like a villain of the week kind of show. Uh, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want it to be that. At least for every case, it sort of dives a little bit into our characters and gives a little bit of flavor to them.
Hmm.
And there's really, in terms of big character, there's only about like three more that they could dive into if they're really scraping the barrel.
Yeah, that's being generous. Exactly.
So at least for me, I don't see like I can see a second season, no problem. I can't see anything more than that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's the
Unless the
thing.
last season is like them getting caught.
And then it's a prison break.
Not necessarily a prison break, but like they have to outsmart the authorities, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like they shouldn't try to spin more stories when don't beat the dead horse,
Yeah.
basically. If when it runs its course, it should stop. And I can't like there are so many shows out there that are a prime example of what we're talking about, like Bleach and this isn't even an anime, but I thought I watched it recently, and How I Met Your Mother. It's just these shows that had a great concept starting out,
Hmm.
and they just took way too long to say what they were trying to say, and people got disinterested, and they had to start making shit up to make it better. We see a lot of character regression and a bunch of shit, which isn't going to happen with this show, hopefully, because right now it's a really good show. It's solid and it's a fun watch, and you could blast it in a day if you're bored. You just get a snack and you watch it. So yeah, I agree with you that it shouldn't be too long, but I do feel like they have a few more stories they could spin from the premise.
So I think we're pretty much closing in on giving our final reviews for the non-spoiler section of this episode. But
Yeah.
before that, how about we just give a without saying what the case is, just quickly give what's your favorite of the cases.
Well, that was actually something I wanted to bring up when we move into the spoilery
We
talk.
could bring it up again. Let's just give the people what they want to know.
Uh, my favorite was the first one.
First one.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I'll explain why later. But what was yours?
I think my favorite would be actually the third one, the
The
last one.
third, really? You know what? That is a good one too. They're all pretty good,
Yeah, they're
honestly.
all pretty good for different reasons though. So like
Hmm.
the reasons why you might like the first could actually be like I could agree with all those reasons and still not not agree that
No,
it's my
exactly.
favorite.
It's a
Which is a
personal
good thing.
preference
It's a
thing.
good thing. It's a good thing that there's not a universally agreed, this one's good, this one's bad, this one's shit.
Exactly. That's
I
what
think
makes a good show.
yep, exactly.
Because people are going to talk about stuff like this long after the show's finished airing. So we're about to move into the spoiler section, but before that, I just want to take a quick minute to talk about the things that maybe we didn't like as much in the show. And I want to start by saying that, I did mention that this was a fairly lighthearted show for the most part.
Right.
And I give it props for not being afraid to dive into some more mature subject matter. We can talk a
Yes.
little bit more about, because I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So they do dive into some more mature subject matter at times, which is fine, except that because for the most part this is a lighthearted show, the initial shift in tone was a little bit jarring for me sometimes. Like everybody will be having a good time, and then somebody's gonna go to sleep and have a nightmare about their past, and it's some fucked up shit.
Yes. I think the cutaways were a little rough.
Hmm.
The cutaways
So
were rough. The pace was a little overly quick at times. Maybe they knew they only had 14 episodes to work with, so they had to cut things off. But it did feel like artificially short at times.
What do you mean when you say artificially short?
I feel like if they actually had 15 episodes, that one episode could have been probably spread around to sort of fill not necessarily pad the episodes as filler, but like sort of just help contextualize some minor things here and there that would help the transitions over.
Mm,
Here, especially in episode one, I actually struggled a little bit. Like I know, like it's sort of like a fancy like broken timeline kind of thing, in episode one. But like that was really hard to understand the first go around. Um, like the cutaways, maybe it's because I've been reading too much manga, and whenever it's a flashback, like sort of like the colors like of the page would sort of tell you that this is a flashback. Um, but here it felt like
yeah, because the panels are like surrounded by black or whatever.
yeah, exactly. But here it felt a little rougher, especially in case three. The first time that there was a flashback, I actually thought it was part of the original the timeline, like the current timeline,
Hmm.
which made it a little weird until I realized, oh wait, this is this person's flashback.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the pacing was a little too quick.
I agree with you 100%. I would argue that it might not necessarily be the pacing, but more so how they didn't put enough emphasis on the fact that they were flashbacks. You know, because not even a spoiler, but the characters don't look different enough in those flashbacks. They look the
True,
exact same.
true.
And you know what? That I agree with you 100% because that I got lost sometimes looking at that too in the first and the second one as well.
Hmm. The first, yeah, the first. You're right. I think only the second one you could sort of see like a physical difference.
Yes, yeah, exactly. The third
The
one I
the
agree with you too, but I kind of know because I mean I had fallen into the pattern of understanding when it was and wasn't a flashback because the changes were subtle enough and I had
mhm.
picked up on it. So the first and second I agree with you there were like what what?
Yeah, I think but I mean, it's like a minor gripe at this point. It didn't overall hurt the enjoyment. I just think that potential-wise, it could have been potentially smoother.
It just needed that little last push of polish to emphasize and make it clear to the viewer.
I mean, as another minor gripe with the series, I also didn't really enjoy the main character, to be honest.
Really?
I thought he was for the self-proclaimed best scammer in Japan. He was a little disappointing,
Okay.
and I don't feel like he really brought anything in the other cases, to be honest.
Um, I would agree with you saying that he probably was the weakest part of the show after the first part.
Yes.
Um, but at the same time, okay, I'd offer two counter arguments there. The
Okay.
first being, and this is purely because I'm biased towards the underdog character.
Okay.
Like I'll always root for the underdog no matter what because it's just shit, man. I like the archetype. Um, you know, he it's kind of a spoiler. It's not really a spoiler, but this is a man who is, just in a bad place at a bad time. He's down on his luck, nothing's going right for him. Um, so it makes sense that he's a small time scam artist until he, you know, starts robbing for millions, obviously. Uh, uh I don't know how I can say this, but it's also cool to see because he's like the moral compass of the group as well.
Sure.
Because on multiple occasions he has the possibility of just doing something really wrong, but he chooses not to, and he does something good in exchange, and he like balances the group out because the rest of the group don't really care. They'll just they'll decide what they want to do, and it doesn't matter who gets hurt or why in the process. But he'll be the one to step back and think, you know what, this is kind of fucked up what we're doing. Let's give them a small break, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, apart from that, really, I don't think there's any. major negatives? Do you have any last ones, or do we just jump in
My
with the score?
my last one, and this is like a minor spoiler, but it's nothing for the story. It's just personal preference here. I would have preferred if the characters had kept their accents throughout the show. And let me know if you agree with me on this. This is a nitpick for me as well.
I think you're right. Uh, I think, are you referring specifically to Laurent?
I'm referring to Laurent and I'm referring to Makoto or Edamame. We'll call him
Yeah, yeah,
Edamame.
yeah.
And
No.
I'm referring to Edamame because because
At the
uh,
beginning, he's like
yes,
told he
exactly.
sucks at English.
At the beginning of the show, whether you're watching in Japanese or in English, the show will start in Japanese. And then at a certain point, they'll start speaking in English, but the Japanese character has a Japanese accent, and Laurent, who's a Frenchman, as we stated, has a French accent. And I feel like the voice actors were doing such a good job and
In
it
episode
added
one.
so much to the characters. Like they became so much more three-dimensional to me and real.
Hmm.
And then at a certain point, it just pauses for a sec and it lets you know, hey, okay, starting now, because you're watching the dub, everything's gonna be in English. And it it creates, like, I don't know if there's an actual term for this because I don't study cinema, obviously, or whatever, but it creates this kind of make-believe effect for me where you're just told to believe something and go along with it.
Okay.
And the flashbacks kind of play a role in that, how like you're just supposed to believe that they're younger even though they don't look different at all. But there's the fact that, okay, so at the beginning they're speaking with these accents and it's great. And then at that point when it says everything's in English now, they all have American accents
Right.
and they
Yes. Yes.
speak perfectly fluent English, but Laurent will constantly comment on how bad Edamame's English is, which is
Yes, it
like,
was weird.
exactly, it's a little jarring. It's like, his English, what do you mean? It's perfect. And there's another example I have for this, just in case people don't understand what I mean. For those of you who have watched the Witcher series on Netflix, spoilers, I guess, but the show happens throughout many, many years. And in one episode, you'll have a character be however, years old. And then in the next episode, they'll look exactly the same, but one of the characters will mention that that same character has crow's feet now, or that he looks older and his hair's graying, even though that's not the case at all. Like he looks exactly the same. So that's something that'll kind of take you out of a show, and that's a minor gripe I had with this show in particular. Because honestly, it wouldn't have bothered me if they had accents, because sometimes, sometimes like you said, they speak Chinese and that's fine because there's the subtitles, and then in other times, there's a specific character who says a word like who says her homeland country in the accent that I think that country would sound like, but then she goes immediately right back to speaking that fluent like English.
Yes.
So that's something that kind of took me out of the show, and I would have much preferred if they all had their own accents. I thought that would have been really cool because the voice actors who were doing the accents were doing a fantastic job, in my opinion. What do you think?
Right, and I think harder because we came from a multicultural place, and like we've heard different accents of English, right? Like we've like my
Yeah,
parents, I heard like the bastard dies broken English,
of course.
and I'm sure like you heard
Hmm.
we both heard like the French English that we call Franglish, and I think like you're right, it gives realism. Maybe it's because it's to an international audience and not everybody would necessarily grasp what's happening or necessarily enjoy listening to this sort of broken English. But I think it would have actually just been more realistic. Like since all of them, I think the only scenario where I want them to have like a different voice would
Hmm.
be when they're acting, like when they're actually like in the process of scamming. I feel like that should have been when they relinquish their accents or like use a different broken form of their usual
Exactly.
accents. But over here, considering what was presented to us in episode one, it is a little disappointing that they sort of gave up on
Hmm.
that. Or maybe it's a time crunch, I don't know, but I
I
honestly prefer what you're mentioning.
Yeah, you know what? I think you said it exactly. They were pandering to an international audience, so they didn't want to take that risk on the off chance that more people would have just preferred a fluent English. Um, but yeah, I feel like in our opinion, it could have only helped the show. I thought it
Mhm.
brought the characters to life.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So how about we just move into like a final
yeah,
score for
yeah. Sorry. Okay. So that's the good things. That's the good and the bad of what, or in our opinion, of the show.
Mhm.
So at this point, we're gonna start speaking. And spoiler alert, we're probably gonna bring up specific details of the show. So if you don't want to have that ruined for you, go watch it. Come back. We're not going anywhere.
But before that, do you want to give like a on 10 score, or what do you want to do? Or just
Oh,
recommend, don't recommend, or what?
I mean, I definitely recommend it. If I had to give it a score, I'd probably give it a solid 8 out of 10. Or no, wait, we do our
Um.
score on 50.
Oh yeah, I was scrolling 50. Right, right, right.
I'll give it a solid like 40. I'll give it a 40 out of 50.
I think I give it like a 37.
I mean, shit, that's a passing grade, bruh.
Yes, they're both passing grades.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think we would both say we recommend it.
Mhm.
And I think I would say we're both excited for Case 4.
Oh, yeah,
That
absolutely.
said, I hope that it gives us a glimpse of a future after Case 4
Mm,
because, like we mentioned, we don't necessarily see a long-term future, and we want to see like an exciting place to head to, and not
hmm.
necessarily just more of the same. Because even though what we have is good, having more of it isn't necessarily great.
I agree. Although, to be fair and to the creator's credit, every case is a self-contained story, and I don't feel like there are any loose ends when the story, I don't have any lingering questions when the case is over.
Right.
So they could end it whenever they want if they keep that up.
Yeah, you're right. And
So, yeah.
so yeah, perfect. Let me see. I'll probably add a sound effect.
Moving on to spoiler wait. Moving on to spoiler territory. Moving on to spoiler territory. All
So do
right.
you want to go case by case?
We can go case by case if you want to, sure.
Okay, so the little thing that was hinted at that I mentioned in the pre-spoilers.
Oh, sorry. Actually, before you get into it,
Sure.
I didn't really bring up a synopsis of the story yet. I mean, I did, but it's pretty vague. So, let me just say it
Sure.
now because I mean, you could find it on Netflix if you want. But so we follow this main character whose name is Makoto Edamura is his name.
Edinburgh, yeah.
Yes, and all his friends call him edamame because they're American or French or whatever, and they don't speak Japanese because they're dumb. Ha! Super funny. And it's the story about how he is just a swindler in Japan who's pretty small time. Steals a couple bucks just to live.
Mhm.
And he one day he tries to scam a Frenchman
A tourist.
and a tourist, exactly, a French tourist in Japan who turns out to be a con artist himself. And that tourist ends up scamming Edamame, whatever. And Edamame wants to get his vengeance and, prove himself as the greatest swindler in Japan. So he follows this tourist back to America where he is roped into all these multi-million dollar scams. And each case is basically a different scam that Edamame and the tourist whose name is Laurent Thierry. So it's them and a bunch of other side characters who go about planning these elaborate schemes to rob super rich people who are usually bad people for millions of dollars, like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right, and
And
to ease our conscience, they do say they only target bad people.
exactly, yeah. So they're like the modern day Robin Hoods,
Except they
except
don't give. Well, they
yeah,
do give
except
some
they
money
keep for
before.
themselves. Yeah, they keep for themselves for the most part, but they give a little bit back.
Yeah. And at least case one is they try to scam this mafia boss into buying some hard drugs, but it's actually just candy, which is the premise.
hmm
Um, for case one, it it was it was the longest by far, because it helps, especially with including twist at the end. it was the longest. It also sprinkled in the flashback of our main character Makoto.
Yes, where we
Um,
learn, his backstory.
I think there's reasons why I could see why somebody would see this one as their favorite, including you.
Yeah,
Um, so the little hint that I actually didn't realize until after the twist happened was that if you listen closely to early parts, whenever they mention like the super detective, they keep
yeah.
saying, "Oh, it's that old hag. It's that old hag." And it's like,
Do
"Oh,
they
that old
say
hag."
that?
Yes, they do say it. But
No
then
fucking way.
whenever you actually see the what's her face?
Her name is Cynthia.
Yeah, Cynthia. Whenever you see Cynthia acting as the super detective, like you look at her and
Wow.
okay, she must be the detective. But then at the end, when it turns out like she's a co-conspirator, you and
Yeah.
then you meet the real super detective at the end, and she's like, I'm the old hag or whatever. That's when it hit me
No
at the end.
fucking way. I didn't even notice that, dude.
So, like I said, it isn't like Death Note levels of, oh, I predicted that or predicted that.
There's
There
like
was
a
a tiny
breadcrumb
bit of,
trail.
yeah, there's like a tiny breadcrumb trail that if you pay attention, I didn't pay attention the first time around, to be fair. Uh,
I
it
didn't even know
it could have
until you
it
told
could
me
have
just now.
actually revealed a little bit. So the twist I thought was actually well done. Um,
That's so cool. Because
the other,
that like surprises people who are less attentive, and it also rewards people who are paying close attention.
yeah, I can't say because I can't say if I found similar things for the other case, but at least for this one, it was at least the most surface level one that I was able to
Mm,
decipher after the fact, which I guess doesn't really
yeah.
help.
There were probably more that we're just too dumb to pick up on, and I'm sure that in a couple months there's going to be like all the Easter eggs you missed
Yeah,
in
there's
the
gonna
Great
be like
Adventure on YouTube.
yeah, some
Um,
YouTuber with like a 2 hour video. It's like, oh,
yeah.
the top 10 Easter eggs you didn't realize.
Yeah, exactly. But going off of what you just said, this is why, in my opinion, this is the best arc, or at least it's my favorite because of these reasons. Because, like I said, this is the only case in which I feel the main character like makes sense being there. If that makes
Mhm.
any sense to you, because like we said in the other ones, like he just is there just because Laurent wants him there. But in this one, it makes sense, like obviously Laurent wanted him there for this one too, but it's the one that makes the most sense for him to be there and why he goes through with all of it. And the twist at the end, because I didn't pick up on any of that shit. So when Laurent and Abby get shot, like I was legit shook. I was like, what the fuck? Are they just, is it over? And then obviously at the end, we see that it's like a whole operation. Like there were cops that were actually con artists. We find out that Cynthia, who was pretending to be, I think her name was Paula Faust, whatever,
Mhm.
she was in on it. And that reveal, that's the kind of reveal that you want in it, or that I kind of wanted in this show to start, because that's that kind of, it's like, oh, it's like that Ocean's 11 vibe, but it doesn't get ridiculous like Death Note. It makes sense. They get in and they do what they have to do and they leave. And like, if I had to name a specific example of when the tension was really rising for me, because I did bring that up, it was when Edamame had to learn how to make the candy, and then he's in the lab like making the fucking candy, and I was like, this is so good right now. And that's the thing. Like the other cases didn't grip my attention as much as this one, to be. And I feel like that's why this one is my favorite.
Um, so at the end of case one, we get shown that there's actually like this gigantic team. The ones that all acted like the FBI agents or whatever.
Exactly, Cynthia,
How do you
the
how do you
background
feel
stuff.
about the fact they never reappeared, really?
Well, I'm not mad about it because, like you said, there are five-ish side characters that always come back because they're part of like this main team that Laurent has assembled.
Right.
And the other ones are just on as like freelancers, basically, which is anyway, that's how I looked at it. It's the same as in
Mm.
the third case where like at that auction, all the people there were just, they were brought on to sell this scene for the
Oh,
person with
okay, I can see
cameras.
that.
It's that kind of thing in my head.
Because I think with that many people, any operation should have been possible. Um, but yeah, okay, so I guess I should explain why I didn't find this one to be my favorite.
Yeah, sure.
Um, First of all, I didn't really enjoy Abby's role in all this in case one. I really didn't understand. Like I get the first episode that we watched together when she takes the drug and well she takes the candy and pretends it's a hard drug.
Uh-huh.
That I understand, but after that her role was really like annoyingly useless. Um,
Yeah, she was like the foot in the door. She didn't have to be there after. I understand what you're saying 100%.
the twist I enjoyed. Okay, the B plot where where Makoto helps
The
the
father.
underling,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
the father underling.
I
I
can't
didn't
remember
feel
his name.
like it went anywhere. I enjoyed it, but I didn't feel like it went anywhere at the end. Um, Apart from that,
What do you mean?
so he gets rewarded with well, we don't know what happens at the end to him. We know that his boss gets arrested. Like we know that the Cynthia gives him enough information so they could technically, bargain with the FBI or whatever. But
Yeah.
we never know what actually happens at the end, so we don't get a resolution for that.
Well, yeah, we do. We see him picking up his kid from the orphanage.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
He's a free man. Like Cynthia says, like give this to the cops and you'll be good. And he does that, and then he goes and picks up his kid at the orphanage, seemingly, for the last time because now they're together.
okay then. I guess
Yeah.
that's not great. Um, Apart from that, I didn't like the so it was sort of reflected. Uh, Makoto's past is sort of reflected in these episodes spread around, and I didn't really catch the like considering considering that he was so against creating drugs because he said, "Oh, I don't do drugs," and then he starts making it. I feel like he could have had a more visceral reaction to the fact that I feel like he was. So how do I explain this? So I feel like even after he was explained that these weren't actually drugs, they were just candy,
Mm.
um, he was sort of overly annoying. Does that make sense? And I
Uh,
also felt
Wait, where specifically are you talking about? Are you talking about when Laurent gave him the candy drug?
no. I mean, he says the one thing I won't do is make drugs or sell drugs, right?
Okay.
And but he was still so against the whole scenario when Laurent reveals that it's literally just candy and we're just pretending that it's drugs. But then they also have like this like then he's like okay, I'm okay with it. But then he hires this actual drug maker to sort of teach him through Zoom, like an online university,
Yeah.
uh, how to
How to
make
make
drugs. But
drugs.
then he's like okay with it, and then he's
But
like sick with it.
he still voices his um what's the word?
Dissent.
Yeah, he still doesn't condone it. Like he's still against selling the actual drugs to the mafia boss, but at this point he like doesn't have a choice. He'll fucking die if he doesn't, you know?
Mm, okay then.
Yeah, and I feel like that was one of the reasons why he decided to, help the quote unquote cops. Because he didn't even care that Laurent and Abby were going to jail. He was like, fuck it, all of you go to jail because this is wrong.
Yeah, okay then. Then the last thing was on the episode that we both watched together, which was the first one,
Yeah.
when like Laurent and him were both so willing. It's like, oh, if I lose, I'll listen to whatever you say. And then
Hmm.
Laurent was the same. But then like whenever after he does, I guess technically lose, um, like he's always so against it. Like, what's the point of what was even the point of adding that then?
Well, damn, bro, were you watching the first case at all? Well, at the end there, um, fuck. Well,
I know Laurent says like I own you, but then he's like, okay, I'm going to prison now.
oh, I get what you're saying. I can't. Oh, yeah, because he's like, I technically won the bet, so, yeah. Well, you know what? To be fair, Laurent does involve him in every case after. So he's not wrong.
Right. Okay then.
But
Um.
I do see what you're saying. I get it. I agree. It was like a throwaway thing, but I mean, you know, at the beginning it became it was a question of pride, and then at the end it was a question of just like, hey, we're frenemies now. Let's work together.
Okay. I mean, let's move on to case two. And long story short, case two is there's this fancy airplane racing competition, and they just
Singapore.
want to scam their way into the first place.
Yeah. Speaking of which, is that building real in Singapore? The fucking like three-pronged building with the is that shit real?
Let me do a quick Google search. Three-pronged
Well, I don't know
building.
if it's called three-pronged, but there's like three buildings and it connects to like a giant bird's nest in Singapore because that's where the case took place, bars.
Um, there's, I mean, you can sort of Google it. It's called Marina Bay Sands Sky Park. It sort of
Marina
looks like it.
Space. And,
Marina Bay Sands
oh,
Sky Park.
Marina Bay. S- Oh yeah, that is 100% the building. That's fucking wild. Holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, like
That's
visually,
sick.
I do think this case was my favorite visually because it had a lot of cool colors.
I 100% agree with
The
you.
planes, the planes in the air was actually really cool.
Yeah, it
Um,
was fun. It was a cool heist. Although I will say I kind of got lost on that casino bit.
I did too. I was gonna bring that up. Well, first, if it was a real casino, I don't think there's any way they would let this guy bet. And I think that should have just had like alarm bells ringing in his head.
Yeah, but you know, to be fair, the villain had a gambling addiction, so like I get it, but it was just yeah. I mean, I kind of got lost on it. I accepted it, but I was like, how the fuck did he
I
fall
know.
for
I
this?
feel like the first episode of Case Two presented like he's not technically a villain. He's technically actually a victim because our characters are technically the villain.
That's true. Well, that's
Um,
technically true for all of them.
yeah, you're right. Wait, we're the bad guys.
Yeah,
Um, but I like in the first episode that he's presented it, he's seen almost like worthy competition. Like he seems intellectually smart, and I get what gambling can do to someone, but like part of it just didn't see like it felt more like
Oh,
the
were
writing
you?
forced him into the trap.
Yeah, okay. You were expecting maybe like more mind games or something.
I thought he was gonna go in and then like reverse scam, and then
I
like one
got
time he
you.
would go like, it seemed odd that this casino was here, so I decided to bet on the one that wasn't planned for or something.
Yeah,
And he make out with like a ton of money, and then they would have to do something fancy. I felt like it was a little too smooth.
I totally understand. Like there weren't enough complications there.
Yeah, there weren't enough
I do get
complications.
it. They got a freebie on that one. I agree with you there. But, you know, at the same time, like we said, you know, somebody's vice is it's all consuming, right? So like and plus they waited to rob him until he was desperate because in this case specifically, you know, he's gonna go bankrupt if Clark, his brother, doesn't win this tournament.
Hmm.
So
And I mean, at the end of it, even though he did win, he still lost all his money. But like,
yeah.
like at the end result was also not that satisfying when he has like they have like that fancy, like super thin UI thing that covers the real results. Like at that point, can't you just do it at the beginning, or what's happening?
What do you mean?
Because at the end they're like, what? There was purple fireworks. Like, no, no, no. I covered it with this thin membrane that makes the red fireworks look purple, signifying
Yeah.
the win of. I'm like at that. Like it felt like such. Like there was no way you could have predicted that, and unless it was, and I didn't notice. But like it didn't feel as satisfying as the other two. Um, the B
I agree.
plot. The B plot was also pretty weak, to be honest. Like Abby's pass was like
Hmm.
haphazardly done. Uh,
Yeah.
you didn't really explain how it tied together with the wheelchair man. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was overall good. It was visually pleasing, but I think there's a reason neither of us thought this was our favorite.
I think we agree that this was the weakest one of the three. And
Mhm.
for all the points you're stating, like you're exactly right. It's true. Like thinking back on it even more, it's like at the beginning of that case specifically, Laurent or Cynthia tell Edamame that fucking Abby just wants to die, and
Yes.
and then he like throws her out of a building, and then well, context for that, they jump out of a building together, and she has a parachute, but um, and like they're okay, and she's okay after that. Which, to be fair, okay. To be fair, these were like seeds planted for what happens in the third case, and I feel like there's something of a romance blossoming between Edamame and Abby, or just like a good
Yes,
friendship.
it does feel like that.
And I kind of like that, honestly, because I'm
What do you think? What do you think about his her fucking
trash.
insult?
What?
What do you think about her fucking insult that he say, "Oh, you fucking virgin," and it's like every time it's like, "You're a fucking virgin," and then like, "You're such a virgin." I'm like, can't you think of a better insult? Like I
Yeah,
like maybe 2 or 3 times would have been fine, but like at that point,
I think they're
like
keeping it PC though, because that's like a classic fucking anime thing to say, isn't
right,
it?
but like at that point, are you like foreshadowing the relationship or what's happening here?
Hey man,
Um,
it's working. I'm enjoying that part of it. But yes, I agree with you that Abby's, and this was the thing I was thinking of when I said, sometimes the shift in tone when they board these mature subjects can be a little jarring because, we find out that Abby's country got which is Baghdad, I think.
I honestly don't remember.
I think, yeah. Well, anyway, it's whatever country she's from. I think it's Baghdad. It gets bombed, and then she becomes a child soldier, and sees like so many fucking people die, and then she becomes we don't even know how she becomes a con artist after that.
Right, there's like a weird part that's still shadowed.
Yeah, so that shit's really fucked up. Like I totally agree with you though.
How
Like
about
their
how about
win over the billionaire like wasn't totally earned. The B plot was weird.
how about that like transition point between case one and case two where Makoto, you get like that final flashback of his dad ending up being revealed as his I don't know if it's necessarily a scam artist.
He was a corrupt lawyer, basically.
Yeah, corrupt lawyer, and then like he struggles to get a job, but then he promises his mom, I'll go get a real job, and then like so quickly he works hard for like 2 months.
Well, okay, hold on. I wouldn't say it's 2 months. Like he worked longer than 2 months.
Well, no, he was in prison for like a few years, but then he worked as a mechanic for like 2 months.
Wait, why did he go to prison again that first time?
Remember he got like his cut of the 20 million, the 120 million. He goes to the police officers and he says, "This is enough money to compensate everybody I ever scammed." And
No, but he went to jail before that because during that flashback he's unable to get work because he has a criminal record.
because he joined the company as sort of like this intern,
Yes, yes, he joined the
selling
company and they were scamming
miracle,
people.
yeah,
Yes.
selling like a miracle drug or some shit. And
I
then
don't know. I think I liked his backstory. It made sense. I don't
no,
think he gave up
I
as
think it made
quickly as you're
sense.
making it out to be.
I feel like he well,
Shit.
agree to disagree, whatever. It's a small point.
It's a gripe. It's a gripe, but I'd say the pacing on that was good. Like I got it. Like he's not. They're not going to show like 3 episodes of him trying to look for work because then that becomes like Naruto levels of flashback, and nobody wants to see that shit. But yeah, I agree to disagree. Fuck it.
I
We're not
just
going to
thought it
talk
was
about it.
really stupid when the head mechanic that he was working as like 2 months in, he's like, "You young man, you learned everything that I had to teach you in 1 month." I'm like, "What?"
I thought it was fucking
And
hilarious,
then
dude.
he's like, "Well, I think you're an expert at cars now. You want to do planes?" Like, what?
I thought. Well, when we find out why that happened,
Yeah, I know why it happens, but like,
yeah, I thought that was hilarious because Laurent even said, like, he said, your goal there wasn't to become an expert mechanic. It was to be able to pass as a mechanic. That's it. So,
yeah, I
he
get
was
it.
there for what, 4 months or whatever, and he learned the basics. Dude, I thought that shit was so funny. When he goes back, I'm like, that's fucking hilarious.
All right then. Do you wanna jump into case three?
Fuck yeah, I do. But before we talk about it, I want to know why it's your favorite.
How about you just give the synopsis first?
Okay, so the synopsis in this one is that Makoto is now living in, or Edamame is now living in France as a sushi chef. And
What?
he's, what? You good?
I bet. Yeah, yeah. You go ahead.
All right.
My guitar
I'll
broke.
just reset it. I'll reset. Edamame is living as a sushi chef in France. He's enjoying his life. He lives in this small hostel, I guess it is,
Yeah. Well,
which is being,
restaurant.
yeah,
It's like a
an
restaurant and public
auberge,
restaurant.
whatever that's called in
An inn,
English.
like an old school inn.
Yeah, so a tavern inn, let's say,
Yeah, yeah.
which is run by a father and a daughter,
Hmm.
and uh, well, basically, Edamame finds out that they're bankrupt and they have debts to pay. So, and he really wants to keep living there because he's been enjoying it. And he decides to scam somebody into buying a painting that this family owns. And he sells it for like 20,000 yen or something, 25,000 yen with the help of Laurent, Cynthia, and this and that and this and
I
that.
thought it was pounds.
Oh, yes, it might have been pounds. You're absolutely
Well,
right.
I guess this is in France, probably euros. I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
monies,
yeah.
units of currency. I don't know, whichever it was, $20,000. How about that?
Yeah, yeah, we'll just say that.
$25,000, and it ends up being a super rare painting that's worth,
20 million.
20 million or whatever. So Edamame feels really bad about it because the family could have made so much more money. So the person who bought the painting for 20,000 turns out to be a famous
Art
auctioneer.
appraiser.
Yeah, art appraiser and auctioneer. So they want to scam him out of the painting and out of a lot of his money to just to reimburse the family. And later we find out it's also to get back at him and get revenge for Cynthia because this auctioneer and Cynthia have a past together.
Right.
Well, not in a romantic way. They just
Right, right, right.
they're part of each other's pasts, I guess
Hmm.
you can say. Which before you talk about why this is your favorite case, how the fuck did that dude not recognize Cynthia? What the fuck?
He's been with old ladies a lot, so he doesn't really pay too much attention with the younger ladies.
That's fucking stupid. I mean, there's a million reasons why he could have just not cared about her enough. Whatever. Okay, that was all I had to say. That's not even a problem I had with it. I just thought it was funny. So, Yuan, why is this your favorite case?
Um, okay, first of all, I feel like the stakes were technically, for me, the lowest in this one because right off the get-go, it felt like they already accomplished their main goal of not compensating, but like saving the inn. So at that point, when whatever they get extra, it was point of pride. Especially for Cynthia, it felt like my time to shine. Because for the others, it felt like uh, case one, it was a do or die situation. Case two was also sort of do or die on a lesser extent. But case three felt like it was their chance to show off. So I think that was neat, and I think eventually it does show. Of the three cases, I felt like this flashback was the most compelling. I would even say by far.
I'll give that to you. I agree.
Uh, the 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 end of it, I felt like it had more. It was a little more complex than case two, and it didn't feel. Case one feels more unrealistic to me than case three, if that makes sense. Um,
Why?
so the minute you have a mafia and the FBI, and then you have betrayals and like that seems less realistic to me than like just somebody trying to scam somebody else for through art. You know what I mean? I
Okay.
don't know. It's so hard to
The
explain.
premise made more sense to you.
Yeah, the premise made more sense to me.
I get it.
The pieces, I'm not a great art I'm an art lover or observer,
Mhm.
but I thought the paintings were pretty well done from what I was seeing.
I mean,
And
dude, usually art within art is like whatever. It's just thrown in to not be blank, but the
Mhm.
paintings actually looked really nice in this.
Yeah, I thought it was really nice. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had
I
like
agree.
I didn't know if they were actual paintings and they were just like a representation of that, but if they're not, I thought it was pretty well done.
They're
Um,
dope. Yeah, we didn't check to see if those were real paintings. I'll check right now. Keep explaining why it's your favorite.
right. Uh, at least the victim slash villain of this episode felt the most compelling. For me, like he was like a straight up asshole. The the fact that the okay, so for case one, the main villain slash victim
It's not
had
real.
the father figure to had that father underling that almost balances out how bad he is. Uh, for case two, the I want to say Saudi prince, but I know he's not Saudi.
I mean, it's heavily implied.
So the rich asshole has like that brother who's like he know his brother's like innocent to a fault that almost balances out too.
Mm-hmm.
But for this one, it felt like the art appraiser was like strictly an asshole. The girl that he sleeps with is technically the victim, but like she's also complicit in it due to her like enabling that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel it was that bad. And at the end, when she stood up for herself, that was something that was sort of unique from the others. Uh, when she sort of leaves the art auction at the end.
Mm-hmm. It was satisfying to see.
Yeah, it was satisfying. And then the ending, like it didn't. I mean, the last thing would be that it didn't technically leave the victim without anything, because the others, like the victim was pretty much screwed. Case one, he's going to jail. Case two, his company's probably going to go down. Case three, it was more like an individual thing. Um, so yeah, I think this was my favorite. I think the final thing that actually tilted it to to its favor is that I really appreciated how at the end when Cynthia and the artist sort of meet up again.
Simon.
Yeah, they didn't go the sappy route and go like they actually got together. I thought it was nice that some things were too far gone and they could remain friends, but they'll never remain lovers.
They made peace with each
Yeah,
other.
I felt like that gave it a hint of realism that was sorely needed. So yeah, I thought it was most realistic.
Uh, I mean, I see your points. I don't disagree with you. I think you're spot on there. It was a great. I mean, listen, it's my second favorite, so
Right.
I mean, yeah, totally. I do see your points. I get what you're saying. It's different perspectives. I don't know. I felt like the first one was as grounded as the second one, although the premise was a little outlandish. I'll give you that. But but yeah, totally. I definitely agree with you here. Uh, all in all, great case in and of itself.
And at the end, it was a foreshadowing that Laurent was next, right?
Yes. Oh my God, that's something I wanted to say. At the end of this case in particular, it's not open-ended because, as we said, the cases are open and shut because they're all self-contained stories. But we do learn that there's a possibility that the Laurent has been secretly like not manipulating, but he's been pulling the strings in order to, like, I don't know, help his compatriots grow as people or something. Like in the first one, Laurent specifically wanted Edamame to come in on this heist for whatever reason. In the
Mhm.
second case, uh, we know that Laurent,
The
wanted
hub
Abby to be the
information.
pilot. Yeah, exactly. We wanted Abby to be the pilot because Laurent knew Bishop was going to be there, this, that, and this and that. And in this one, at the end, Cynthia explicitly comes out and asks Laurent, is there a possibility that you organized all of this just to meddle with my past or whatever? And Laurent doesn't answer. He's like, and then
And
he's
then
like,
he also pulls out like a pendant or whatever, or a necklace. And he's like,
yeah,
"Isn't that right?" I forget the name.
I forgot it. I think he said Caroline. No, Abigail. I don't know. But the implication there was that he had a wife. So I'm assuming, yeah, that this next case is going to be about Laurent, which, I mean, I thought that was super cool because we first of all, we know that Laurent is in actuality the greatest pretender here right now.
Yes, by
So
far
I
the
thought
coolest, by
that's
far the
cool.
most suave.
Yeah, yeah, it's a cool little twist on the title because we're led to believe that it's edamame for right now, or it's a question of who between the two is the best, but we know for a fact that it's Laurent.
Mhm.
And it opens the door to his character because like you said, the next case we're probably going to get some insight on him, and I think it's really cool that he's going through this, obviously for his gain and the gain of his friends here, but he's also like in the process trying to help his friends in a way, in
Mhm.
some really messed up way. I don't know. I think it's a really cool idea.
All right. Well, I mean, that I think will conclude our overall. I called it short, but it's heading into like a long, long episode
Yeah, yeah, we're
territory.
getting there, man. I was gonna ask who your favorite character is, so you could give a brief answer for that if you want.
Mm, favorite character? I mean, overall, I think it would be Cynthia. Like
Just because
she
of
was
case one.
involved. No, first, I think case one, her reveal was fantastic. Uh,
That's true.
case two, she was almost comic relief.
Yeah,
And the case three, I mean, it was obviously like satisfying,
of course.
emotional flashback, and like she was the main star of that, and I thought that was well done. Um, but the problem is, I didn't really like her necessarily as my favorite. I just really went as a process of elimination, and I think she would stand out until
Yeah,
at least case four.
that's true. Yeah, like not all. I'd agree with what you just said there. Is that like there's no favorites here. No character is weaker than the other necessarily, except maybe Edamame. I like all the characters a lot. I think my favorite would be Laurent
Yeah, Laurent
for
straight up.
now.
I mean,
Anyway.
but The problem with Laurent, he's like the Kakashi, I guess, of the series.
Makes
Like he's
sense.
cool, everybody likes him, but like he's not the main focus
Yeah, yeah, he's the
as of
fan
yet.
favorite.
At least not until case four.
I got you. All right. Well, closing thoughts. So we gave our scores already. So remind the viewers again. You said
37 out of 50.
37 out of 50. I give it a solid 40 to 42 out of 50 as well. Overall, strongly recommend. It's a great show, a great listen if you're bored. You just get some popcorn and you blitz those 14 episodes that are out right now, and there's your night.
Could have a better opening.
I agree.
I think you could keep the visuals, just add like an actual song
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, so anyway, I don't know what we're gonna do in the next few weeks. I don't know if we want to discuss it here. The timeline Max gave us would probably give us at least.
Yeah, he might not be able to make the next episode, the next recording either. So, stay tuned.
Yeah.
We'll probably do something similar to this. We'll find a different series and we'll figure it out.
All right. So thank you all for listening. This has been a short of Manga for Dummies.
The
A
longest short in
yeah,
history.
yeah. We're really abusing the name here. But
Yeah.
yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. It's something new for us. We haven't reviewed any anime yet, and we don't technically do reviews anyway. So this was an interesting alternative,
Yeah, this was fun.
and I think it was probably more dynamic with me and VJ here than just me rambling on. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. That's all from me, Yuan, signing out.
VJ signing off.
All right, have a nice one.